All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to LinkedIn Live. And hopefully, y'all notice how incredibly good I look because I have these massive LED lights shining on me. Thank you, Amazon Prime, for shipping those on time. Good to see we got a good crowd in here already, folks. Do me a favor, make sure you smack those emojis down there. Hit that share button so that your network knows that we're going to be live with Craig. And I've already put the challenge out there. Definitely want you to stump Craig. For those that work with him, let's go. Dig into some obscure payments questions, some digital questions. Let's see what we can do to put him on the spot and test his knowledge. He's thrilled with me right now for saying that. And with that, let's get started. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sam All. Welcome to episode 120 of the 11FS FinTech Insider Breakfast Show. 120 episodes. We've been doing this every day since early April. Thank you, COVID. And love to see the international crowd that we have. In this show, we bring you the best and the brightest from around the fintech and banking landscape every single weekday, straight into your homes at 8:30 BST, apart from Wednesdays when I go live here at 3:30 British Standard Time, or actually it's 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, as most of you know if you're looking at your watches. Make sure you subscribe. Go to the 11FS channel. A lot of great interviews. David had a great one yesterday. We love doing these. And I also want to highlight the 11FS Daily Brief that we do here on LinkedIn. Every morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, we post a short video summarizing 3 news stories from the past 24 hours that caught our attention and should have yours. So an example, in the one that went out today, we talked about how Klarna is looking to raise $500 million in their latest funding round. So that new round of funding would value Klarna at a hefty $10 billion, or a 10x unicorn, folks. That's a report according to Reuters. This represents a near doubling in the company's value, with Klarna previously weighing in at $5.5 billion in August of 2019. Not too shabby. Klarna, if you didn't know, is a Swedish company founded in 2005. They had previously stated that the U.S. is poised to become its largest market. You should also note that Klarna recorded a loss of $60.6 million in the first half of 2020. That's 7 times higher than the first half of 2019. Thank you, COVID. A lot of that has to do with their buy now, pay later scheme that they have. All right, with all that, today we're thrilled to be joined by Craig Sachs. He's the Chief Strategy and Transformation Officer at ACI Worldwide. On today's show, we're going to take a closer look at the ways in which ACI Worldwide helps banks and merchants adopt new technology in order to enable real-time payments. And as you would expect from somebody of ACI Worldwide in the U.S., Craig, I'm assuming you're in Naples, Florida.
That's correct. Hi, Stan. Hello, everyone. Great to be here. Yep, I'm Naples, Florida, which when I first heard about it, I thought I was going to Naples, Italy, but unfortunately I ended up in Florida, which is very different. But nonetheless, yes, been here for the last 8 years with ACI.
Yeah, I'd asked Craig, so obviously y'all can hear the accent. Originally from early studied in Cape Town. I said, how do you compare Cape Town and Naples? And your answer was you don't, which is it's a very safe answer. So well done. You should be a politician. You handled that really well. First up, let's talk a little bit about yourself, okay? And your role at ACI. How long you've been with ACI?
So I joined ACI in 2012 on the back of an acquisition. So I was part of the industry consolidation journey, I guess. I was with S1 before that. So if you add the two together, I've been with ACI and its predecessor company for about 12 years now.
That's a good haul too, by the way. Yeah.
It's been good. It's an exciting industry to be part of. Lots going on.
And I think we should actually touch on that. When you go through an acquisition like that and two companies kind of merge like that, what was the experience like for you?
Look, it was very good for me.
Good.
I've had a really good time at ACI. ACI has been good to me. It's a good company doing some very interesting things. So I certainly cannot complain. Look, any acquisition is tough.
Yeah.
You come from a place where you have a particular culture and a particular way of doing things, and to be successful, you've got to put the two organizations together, and both have to give up some stuff in the pursuit of a bigger dream and vision. And so, that transition is always going to be challenging for some people, and some do better out of it than others.
And for the folks that have tuned in, and by the way, I'm not going to say hi to everybody, but hi, everybody. Siddharth, good to see you here. Dr. Abdullah Veronica, Craig, you name it, Dan Finney. Man, good, consistent crowd. I put the challenge out there. If you have an incredibly tough question around payments, feel free to ask them. So throw them in the comments section over here. Let's see what we can do to drive Craig absolutely crazy over the next 30 minutes. Some pretty deep questions, but I'm going to stick with the easy stuff first. How would you summarize? How would you do the elevator pitch on what ACI does?
So I would describe ACI as a payment software company. So we build payment solutions that are used across the entire payments ecosystem, from banks through intermediaries, acquirers, and networks, through to the merchants, through to billers, people, where you want to pay your bill on a monthly basis online or via the mobile. So we cover that. We provide technology that enables all of that around the world. You can use the technology as a software license, or you can run it in the cloud or in the ACI cloud.
And you guys really do have a global footprint, right? I mean, let's see if you can do this off the top of your head. How many countries are y'all in that you have offices in?
We have offices in the mid-cities,
wow.
I would say, yeah.
It's pretty much every continent. We can just go ahead and get that over with, right?
Yeah, everywhere we're pretty widely spread. And that's because we have a very diverse and widely spread customer base.
Right.
We have customers probably in about 100 countries. And then, one step beyond that, those customers use us in a whole bunch of markets. So right. You'd be hard pressed to find a place where some form of payment transaction is being processed, through ACI software. So we truly are covering the globe, and that's one of the things we pride ourselves in. We have more ways to pay in our solutions than just about anyone else I've seen, and that's really a consequence of operating globally for the last 40 years.
And I'll tell you one of the hard parts of this. So previous life, I worked at TSYS. Spent a portion of that time living overseas in the UK. When you serve a global audience, it's just damn tough. Right? I mean, you're going country to country, region to region, different regulatory requirements, different gateways, different. I mean, it is very challenging. How's that, Craig? I'll put it that way. It's very challenging to stay innovative and provide the services your customers need when you go to that extreme, when you're global.
Yeah, but look, it is. And I think it's actually a very high barrier to entry to new entrants who want to drive a global payments experience. It's really hard because of this, diversity that you have around the world and the rate of change. People like ACI that have had the opportunity to be at it for a while have kind of grown into the global footprint. And maintaining that global footprint is relatively easier once you've got it and trying to get into all the places around the world. But it's also part, I think, of the value proposition of larger payment companies. We take the burden of global compliance onto ourselves on behalf of our community of customers. And so that really, I think, is an industry value add of companies like ACI and others that do operate globally.
And it's also tough because we say you're providing in the payment space, but really that's broken down into multiple areas. So there's different solution areas that you focus in. Can you kind of summarize those?
Yeah, we cover the whole ecosystem, as I said. Yeah. And over the years, we built a portfolio that covers the value chain. But broadly speaking, we do cards on the issuing and acquiring side. We do real-time payments. We do merchant payments, both the e-commerce side and the omni-commerce side. We do fraud systems. So we have payment risk management solutions, obviously, to protect all of those payments. And we have biller systems and various online banking systems. So pretty much, again, our solutions cover the whole ambit.
And so already some good questions coming in. Folks, I love you. You guys are so consistent. I knew Dan in London was going to ask some great question. I knew Siddharhar was, and they're already flying in. So this kind of ties to, their question kind of ties into where I wanted to steer this a little bit when we talk about the future of payments and where it's going. So Dan already asked, the rise of open banking, is that challenging the ACI infrastructure? Because again, you're doing this on a global scale. So when we talk about open banking in Europe as compared to the US, it's two different beasts. So how is this impacting y'all?
So if you look at where ACI plays, the bulk of our contribution in the industry is at the infrastructure layer.
Yeah.
And so, at the end of the day, payments have to flow through robust, scalable pipes. That tends to be where we play. Our work has been focused on opening up those pipes. So, all the usual things, open APIs and, SDKs and what have you, would be the technology response that we've made to enable our customers to open up and to support the whole open banking movement. I think the challenge is less about the technology from people like ACI and more about the marketplace and the managed the ecosystem play.
Yeah.
Security and risk management and who you're letting in versus not letting in, and is it a level playing field or not? Are the regulators relegating the payment operators and the banks to being underpaid utilities and therefore undermining innovation that is possible through the open banking? I think those are the bigger issues. The critical thing is that your technology providers, your infrastructure providers, need to be able to accommodate the vagaries and the unpredictable transaction volumes and this whole multitude of use cases that perhaps have been unforeseen in a way that doesn't compromise the base integrity of the payment systems.
Man, so I'll ask you the obvious question, right? I'm getting these all out of the way early, Craig.
Mm-hmm.
But from what we've been going through since really here, at least here in the US, since March with COVID, I keep reading about how online payment transaction volumes are just skyrocketing, how e-commerce has taken off. What has it been like at ACI? What have you all seen?
I think our experience has been exactly the same.
Yeah.
A major uptick in anything online and remote has been good for us, not just in the e-commerce space or the online bill payment space, but also in some of the proximity payments. The whole activation of more contactless payments, for example, at point of sale has also been a consequence for us. So broadly speaking, the trend to an online world and the digital world and the need to deal with capacity spikes and risk management and everything else that comes with that has been our experience as much as I think it's been anyone's experience.
I don't know that we touched on that much, but I want to circle back, talk a little bit about your role at ACI. So can you narrow in a little bit? I mean, we always talk about chief strategy officers and transformation officers and stuff like that. And I think the definitions vary a little bit company to company. What does it mean? What does your role specifically mean at ACI?
Yeah. So look, I've been privileged to do a lot of things at ACI. I've been chief product officer, group president, chief operating officer. At the start of this year, ACI got a new CEO. And so my role at the moment is to work with the CEO to define the next iteration of ACI. And what is ACI going to do in this very rapidly changing and dynamic world? And so I would probably define my role as a combination of two things. One is to make sure that we maximize the value from what we've got. And ACI has got a lot of very good things. We've got a fantastic customer base. We've got great technology. We've got a great geographic footprint, as we spoke about. So the question is, how do you continue to grow and even accelerate that? So that's part one. And then part two is to really look forward and say, what are the things that we should be doing as a payments technology provider to ensure that we remain an interesting provider of technology and can enjoy participation in the more interesting and faster growing parts of the payments ecosystem in the next 5 to 10 years.
Another interesting question came in from Dan, and I'm going to frame it up this way. The thing with ACI is y'all have been around for a while, right? You're one of the OGs. I'm going to sound like my kids. You're one of the OGs when it comes to payments. You guys have been around. It's a tough ecosystem to crack, which is why you got to give Stripe some credit, right? What they've been able to do. And we talk about this a lot. It doesn't matter what part of fintech we talk about, what the impact fintechs have had on driving innovation. So when you look at companies like Stripe and some of the other ones, I'm assuming that raises the bar a little bit for y'all, right? On performance and on innovation and what you provide for your customers.
Obviously, very much so, and that's a good thing. The
I
more
agree.
innovation,
Good point. It is a good thing.
I'd far rather be in an industry which is very dynamic and very competitive and very innovative than one that is staid and dying. And the one thing you can say about electronic payments, it's not staid and dying. In fact, I think the next 5-10 years are going to be very exciting in the industry. So, look, that's good and inspiring. At the end of the day, ACI benefits from its history in that a lot of those transactions that the front end innovators are triggering and generating happen to run through a piece of ACI payments infrastructure. Our software processes hundreds of billions of transactions each year. I often talk about the fact that just about every single person on this call, probably every day that they transact, sending a payment transaction that touches a piece of ACI's technology somewhere. We're the hidden brand, but it does mean that I get to celebrate when there are great innovators that are driving volumes through existing rails or through some of the emerging rails where we participate. That's good for us. That's our strength and our role in the industry.
Yeah. I say this constantly, and I think my audience probably gets tired of it, but the companies that are under the glass are what I love so much. The pipes, the underlying infrastructure that exists there. I find so much value in them, and the innovation that happens under the glass is what I enjoy so much. So companies like ACI, Stripe, and others are the ones that I find intriguing. And along those lines, we're talking about your global footprint. I knew Siddharhar would do this. So Siddharhar, founder out in San Francisco, asked a great question. So Craigie said, I'm intrigued to read that ACI allows someone in South Africa to pay someone who does not have a bank account, but yet is able to access the funds at an ATM using just their mobile phone. Can you speak about this more, how you handle it security-wise and securely, and can this idea be used in other countries to handle global remittances for underbanked or underserved?
Yeah. So that use case where people can send money to an ATM where you can redeem it in a cardless transaction by entering a PIN or a code has actually been quite widely used. We've got a bunch of customers in places like India as well that do that. Again, I think there are two components to it. There's the core payments processing, which makes sure that money moves safely and is protected and everything else. And then there is the user experience at the point of origination and the point of payment, in this case at the ATM. And we've been involved in that process. But again, some of these use cases have been partly built by ACI, certainly enabled by ACI's technology that's in place in those banks, but then innovated by our customers, which brings us back to the open banking conversation.
Yeah.
The fact that we have open APIs, the fact that we have development kits enables our customers and participants in the industry to really add a layer of innovative and exciting consumer-facing use cases. And this is an example of what some of our customers have done running on top of our payment platforms.
So another great question. You're getting these from all around the globe, by the way. So I know Naples is incredibly exciting, Craig, but we're getting, Lord, this one's coming from Saudi Arabia, from Dr. Abdullah, who's in the cybersecurity space in the oil and gas industry. So this question makes sense coming from him. What's the advancement of ACI Worldwide in the cloud computing space? How is cybersecurity handled in a rise of evolving vulnerabilities in these new computing environments? Good question.
That's a good question and a long topic.
Loaded question, is it not? Yes. Hey, you got 10 minutes. Here we go.
Yeah. So look, what I can tell you with absolute certainty is that the growing consumption of the public cloud, the likes of Azure with Microsoft and AWS and Google and others, is inevitable even in the banking and payment industry. It's not necessarily going to be as fast as the retail industry was, but it certainly is happening, and every day you see another announcement, and these guys are working very hard to make it possible. We actually are quite excited about that. We've got some very large customers that have deployed ACI solutions in the public cloud for all the typical reasons, global infrastructure, pay as you go, and actually, interestingly enough, security. And this is, I think, something that has changed quite radically in the market sentiment over the last 4 or 5 years. 5 years ago, no one would have said this is possible. Today, people are saying how and when. And the best, story I have is 2 years ago, we had one of the CIOs from one of our large customers. I think he had a $1.5 billion budget or something in his IT department. And he was talking about the public cloud. And his comment was that the big public cloud providers outspend him by orders of magnitude on security and compliance.
Yeah.
His entire budget can't match what they're spending on being secure and compliant. And so his argument was, in fact, he's probably more secure just because of the work that those big guys are able to do because of their scale. And what have you that goes with that. So that's a point of view. The argument about is the public cloud secure, I think, has actually shifted, and the argument has now shifted more to concentration risk. If I put all of my stuff in one of the big players, what happens if something goes sideways with them? And so I think the debate is moving from is it intrinsically secure to what is my risk mitigation strategy around having a dual vendor or multi-cloud kind of strategy. And I think that adds a layer of challenge to technology providers because you need to optimize your solutions for multiple clouds in order to meet the needs of your customer base as they have to pursue over time a multi-cloud strategy.
Man, I'm glad you went there. That was a really good answer, by the way. You condensed what could have been an hour conversation down to about 2 minutes, Craig. But I'm glad you went there because, that is the reality, right? Capital One obviously ran into an issue with their cloud service provider. And if you think about that, right, if there is a vulnerability that happens with, I'm just going to pick one because they're all fine, but AWS or Azure or whatever, do you have the ability are you able to integrate or have services with, say Azure, AWS, or Google Cloud, or, take your pick, IBM or Alibaba. Oh my God, I think I named almost every one of them. But that's the reality in the stage that we live in. So that was a good answer. I'm giving you, there you go, Craig. You get a thumbs up from me. I thought that was a very bright answer. Question from lovely Bianca, our own 11FS, incredibly talented Bianca. With higher amounts of non-fraud related chargebacks happening over COVID and a huge increase in online payments catching many off guard, what other potential trends or charges or changes could be on the horizon as the long-term effects of the pandemic are realized? So in other words, what do you think the effect of COVID is going to be long-term in payments?
Look, so the one thing, and it's a cliche, everyone says it, but this acceleration of digitization is inevitable.
Yeah.
It's moved the industry forward, and I suspect the next year or two we're going to be mopping up, all the quick fixes we put in place.
Yes.
In some cases. And while those quick fixes haven't necessarily compromised security, you obviously got process fraud and refunds fraud or return fraud, all of those kind of things. Right. The intrinsic payment systems have actually been quite robust. And I think the challenge now is going to be to complete the digitization of businesses, which means you need to integrate your end-to-end process and your end-to-end systems. It's one thing to say, let's put everything online in payments. Well, are those payment systems integrated end-to-end to your back office systems? And does your customer have a complete end-to-end experience? And I suspect that's where a lot of the fraud is happening. Someone buys something and then they go return it, and the return is coming through a different path with a different system that isn't integrated with the original payment system adequately yet.
Yeah.
And so I think the acceleration of digitization is inevitable. The opportunity is to actually complete the renovation of your end-to-end systems, front end through to back end, and make sure that your flows, your customer identities, your linkage of events is consistent right through, because that's where you're going to avoid risk and fraud. Fraud and risk happens in these gaps where things fall between the cracks.
Yeah.
And in our rush to digitize everything, not everyone has filled all the gaps. And that, I think, is the opportunity and the challenge over the next few years.
And when we talk about payments, when we talk about the future, obviously, you have to ask, how does ACI view crypto, right? And any fundamental changes they see happening with payments down the road, or technology to support, what now is not new. I mean, let's stress that. I love when people say, "What about this new thing like crypto?" And you're like, guys, it's 2020. This isn't new.
Yeah. Look, I think that crypto's interesting. I think it has a role to play. I don't think it's going to become mainstream until central banks actually issue fiat currencies in crypto.
Exactly.
Because otherwise it's going to just be a niche, or it's going to get regulated into fiat currency. So this whole central bank digital currency conversation that's growing, I think, is one to watch.
Yep.
And is going to be interesting. But then it's just another form of electronic fiat currency that needs to move in the same way as that money moves.
Yeah.
I would say that perhaps the more immediate and mainstream trend is the transition to real-time payments.
Amen.
It is the biggest, most transformative thing that's going to happen in the payments industry over the next 10 years. Every single country, every single business, every single bank is going to have to embrace real-time payments, because it's a good thing. It's an inevitable thing. It's good for people. It's good for the economy. And that, for me, is really where the excitement is, and certainly where ACI, if you ask me to make one strategic bet for ACI, I'll tell you it's all things real time, because that is the next generation of payments.
Yeah, that argument's dead. I couldn't agree with you more. So, and it has the most immediate effect, right? Yeah. So good answer. Couldn't agree more. And believe it or not, Craig, there you go. 30 minutes flies by. Okay, folks, that's it. So Craig, for our folks, if they want to be able to reach out to you, learn more about ACI, where's the best place for them to go?
So ACIWorldwide.com, go have a look. You'll learn everything about ACI. You want to find me, I'm on LinkedIn. Happy to chat. Thank you.
There you go. Easy enough, folks. Tomorrow, I obviously won't be here, but Simon Taylor with his lovely mop of hair. You should dial in just to see Simon Taylor's hair. He'll be hosting this. He'll be joined by Simon Torrance. He's the author of the New Growth Playbook. That's it for today, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.